Well, I really appreciate you chatting with me again. And every time we talk, I always, like I said, you fill my bucket. So I'm grateful. I realize, with the new year, this is such an awesome experience to kick it off with because I do think that there's a lot of people. I'm privileged to be at the center of a lot of different conversations with folks about their journey. 2023 was a hard year. It was a horrible year, and I'm sure you've seen it directly impacted in your sphere and your work and the people you know. So I wanted to talk with you because you're such an uplifting soul and you're somebody that has a lot of great ideas, whether you believe it or not, because you're one of the most humble people I know as well. But we've known each other for a few years now. I can't believe I feel like I've been a witness to your journey in a lot of ways and been really privileged to be a part of that from Bluestem to SEI to now with Optum. So I would love though for you to fill in the gaps as well. Like tell me more about, kind of where your journey started and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, no. Well, first, thank you. I agree. It's been great to be in each other's orbit, right? It's been, like you said, 3-4 years now, and that's fantastic. And I agree. This is a great topic to kick the year off with because I also very much agree. 2023 is awful. I've seen a ton of people in my network that have been looking for work, companies struggling to find people. I've been grateful, right? I've been at Optum and I've been enjoying the analytics space, and I'll talk a little more about that. So I feel very grateful, but I'm always trying to help. And so when you reached out, you're like, hey, let's talk about this. I thought, fantastic. What a way to potentially, hopefully, maybe just one person will like it, or just you and I will, but share broader, right, out into the LinkedIn verse around interviewing and what it means, right, those things. So anyway, my background, and I'm going to go through kind of the beginning to now just to help anchor a little bit on domain and technical areas that I've been in, because I think that helps, for me anyway, it helps frame up why I think the way I think about interviewing and the different types of interviewing. So I started out in the hardware side of the world for years working on test automation, and that was around medical wearables and medical implantables. And so I spent probably the first decade of my career sitting in that space, figuring out how do you make things faster, how do you improve processes, automate it, get production test floor to go, right? All those things that you really want to do in your manufacturing facilities, you need to fly. And you need to do it well, though, because these are things that people trust. So I spent, like I said, about a decade in that space working with other technology, process-minded folks. And then I went over to the software side of the world, and I spent another period of time. I'm going to stop saying how much time because I don't want to admit how old I am. But in the software side, I spent a lot of time again in making improvements, making features, but dealing in a different domain. So it was in a retail space, and it was really around software development, software architecture. It was around leading global teams and product development. So vastly different than when you're sitting in a hardware side of the world. And then fast forward to my time at Bluestem, I had the opportunity to move over to infrastructure. So sort of hardware, but different. It's actually more data centers and cloud and network, telephony and end user compute and all that. And working there with teams on how to essentially automate infrastructure, the creation of software systems, how to deal with incident response, both from something's broken, I need to wake up and fix it, to somebody broke in, we need to stop them and fix it. So the security aspect too. And so I spent a number of years then in that part of the world, bringing my software background into the infrastructure and security background. And then now I've been at Optum for over a year and a half, working on business analytics and looking again, ironically, here's data center systems, how do we modernize them into cloud systems, what are the security aspects? So the reason I kind of walk through all that is throughout that whole period of time, I've had to talk with different people and interview different people and have conversations in like very different industries and very different technical domains. So hopefully that will show value, I guess.
Yeah. Well, ballpark, how many people do you think in your career you've interviewed? Do you think you're somewhere like 25, 50, 100? I mean, how many people do you think you've been on that other side of the bench interviewing?
I would say probably in the hundreds if I think about over all that time and being either on a panel or the hiring manager or just a interested person to help interview. Yeah, so I'd say hundreds.
You put your time in. Well, in preparation for those, how do you go about making sure that you're really well prepared to interview somebody? I think that what's the responsibility you have as an interviewer?
Yeah, I mean that's a really good question. For me, it's kind of three different activities or roles, I guess, that I would play as an interviewer. Like one, there to engage. Interviewing should be a good experience, right? Which is what we're here to talk about instead of a process, a cold, hard process that you're just a widget flowing through. So as an interviewer, show be engaged, share about the organization, because I think that's the second thing that's important is whenever you're interviewing with a company, it is really difficult to find out what that company is like. People will interview, and you hear it all the time from candidates. They had 6 interviews, they got a job, and it was completely different than what anybody described. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to others. So to share, and then the third one is just come prepared. So understand where that person's been, what they appear to be interested in. Because the one thing you want to do is you don't want to waste time in that cold process of like, could you please replay your resume to me? And I want to listen to you tell me where you've been, like I just did for however long. It should be much more about interesting things you've done, right? So look and see what some of the projects they've executed, some of the things that they've been involved in. That way, you show up and you ask really interesting questions right out of the gate. So as an interviewer, that's what I try to do and try to be prepared to bring.
Yeah. And on the other side of it, because I'm assuming you yourself have interviewed at times for positions, how do you go about preparing? Is it different based on the person? Is your process, I should say, different based on the person that you're meeting with?
It is. I've done this. I've done this sometimes, and I've not done this sometimes. And I can tangibly see a difference. So what I try to do when I am interviewing is, like you said, who am I interviewing with, and what do they care about? If I'm interviewing with a CFO or somebody who's leading a financial piece of the organization, what they care about in technology is probably vastly different than what the CIO cares about in technology. And so I think it's important to do research on the person, not the person themselves. Like I'm going to research Lauren, but if you're a CFO, what do you care about? What does your craft care about? What concerns might you have? Because I think that helps me engage and ask better questions, both to understand the way that you as an individual are running your part of the organization, and two, what are you really going to expect of me? Because you can ask somebody, what do you expect me to do in this role? And they're probably going to read the job description. It's a little bit different when you say, as a CFO, what do you care about? So that's probably the biggest thing I do. And then I do practice. I think it's a little bit silly. It feels silly anyway, right? When I'm sitting here practicing these questions, but practice how you would ask and practice how you would answer. I think that's when you do that, you don't show up rehearsed. You don't show up like you're reading off a script that's kind of hiding behind your screen, but you show that I think you've thought a little bit about the conversation and you prepared for it. And I think just you're better suited to then have that conversation because it's never going to go the way you thought it would. So those are the things I tend to do as the candidate anyway, when I'm in that position of really being prepared. Like I said, I've seen it work really well when you do that. And when you don't do it, I can tell.
Have you ever asked a person that you've interviewed with why they chose to go to the company that you're exploring?
I have. I love that question actually. Like, and what do you like about the company, right? And like, describe the culture to me. And you get varied responses. Some people you can kind of tell. Some people will read the values, and they'll walk through it, right? And the integrity is the letters, and they'll go through each one. Like you can kind of hear that, but I really like the ones who talk. What I find really interesting is when people will answer and they'll just talk about the draw of the mission, the draw of the value, the draw of the people, and typically what I find is when people really begin to resonate and they're talking about how they feel like they're making an impact. Like to me, those are the answers that I really like to hear.
Yeah.
That was probably a little
Yeah.
more than you wanted to go into on that, but yeah.
No, I think it's great. I love that question. I ask it a lot of people, just even who I have the pleasure of meeting. Like, why did they choose to do what they did? I think that it's funny. I mean, we take for granted a lot of the things. Like, we just assume that things kind of came together, as opposed. I guess what I mean is asking why. Why do people do what they do? I think we don't often even stop and ask ourselves why we're doing what we're doing. So I always enjoy what people say. And to your point, you can really feel the authenticity of someone's answer. If they love what they're doing, they love where they're at, they love who they're working for, they're lit up about it. You feel it's palpable. If someone has to really stop and think, or they got to look to the right and look at the core values, that are tattooed on the wall here, that gives me pause.
Hmm.
A question that I've been sort of toying with because it's come up multiple times, and again, in this under this umbrella of interview as a better experience, how do you feel about coding challenges? I talked to somebody just the other day who's been in the industry, 20 years plus as a software engineer, very talented, and was asked to do a hacker rank, and his response was, "No, I'm not doing that." And it was kind of refreshing in a lot of ways, right? Like I think he said something to the effect of, I don't know if I'm not a performing sea, I'm not like a sea lion. I can't remember what he said. Something the fact, he's not an animal. He's not a performing monkey in heels or something like that. And I'm curious, is there a better way to suss out tech chops? How do you go about as a leader who needs someone who's technically competent? How do you go about figuring out if they can cut the mustard?
That's a really great question. Coding challenges, I think, have gone. Their time has passed, in my opinion. And I mean, pull up an IDE, start coding. I want to see you write a pointer or a function with a variable and create an object and da 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 da. Right? You've got generative AI now that can do that. I think there's Copilot. We've seen all the different articles about it. So we're going to lose the ability to tell if the person can actually even write code on their own, frankly. And the value of a person writing code on their own, I think, is they can Google it, and we should trust that they can do that. So to answer your question, what I really like to do is, and I'll use code sometimes, but pull up a function and have the person describe what it's doing. Like, tell me, read this, take a few minutes, read it. What is it doing? How is it? What is it intended to serve from a functional perspective? And then you ask, how would you change it? Like, here's a requirement, and keep it simple. Don't get crazy on people. I think it's like the hacker code challenge thing that you just talked about. If we're going to modify this, how should we modify it? Should we even modify it? Should we maybe create it somewhere else and in this code? And I think when you engage people in that conversation, you really, can they understand what they're reading? Have they thought about its functionality? Can they articulate how to change the functionality? And there, I think you get a better sense of, can the person think on their feet and can they go solve problems? Because that, to me, that's more important, especially now with Copilot and with Google. Like, we need some people who can think, not ones that can just like rely on the bot.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. I think problem solving skills. I think people are nervous about how AI is going to potentially impact or make irrelevant their position. But I do think I'm an optimist here about this. But I think problem solvers, people who have high emotional intelligence, people who are coming at things in a unique capacity or leveraging other tools, in their toolbox, proverbially speaking, I think they're the ones who are going to rise to the top here. And that's across the board in all capacities, not just engineers. But I like your answer a lot. I think people will appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'm sure you've heard the expression, people don't leave jobs, they leave the people they work for, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they leave bad bosses, right? What makes a really good boss? What makes a great leader? I guess let me reframe that, because I think that's a big part. Like, as much as you're interviewing candidates or we're talking about how to make it a better experience, what makes a really great leader? Because that's why people leave companies, because there's not a great leader, and that's why people often go to companies or they'll follow leaders into the trenches. I've heard this time and time again. That is somebody I would follow into hell if they told me that they were going there, right? Like, so what makes a great leader?
Yeah, no, that's another wonderful question. And I've said that. That's actually how I got to Optum, because I followed a leader that I worked for before.
I
What
thought you were
comes to
going to say that's how
mind,
you went to hell, so I'm glad it wasn't that.
right? I currently ended up in the flames. No, have you seen the image? I've been thinking a lot about this. So I do post a little bit on LinkedIn, and this one's been rolling around in my head. So I'm glad you asked this question. So maybe you can help me figure out how to post it. You ever seen the image of the difference between a leader and a boss? I think is what it says. And you got like the five people pulling the wagon, right? And the person on the wagon who's like pointing, and then you've got the other picture, which is the five people pulling the wagon, and the person's in front pointing. Have you ever seen that picture?
I have not, no.
Okay. Well, what that picture is intended to depict is a leader standing like on the wagon, being like, "Do, do, do." So they're just telling, they're directing, right? Go to this, go to this. It's implying like that's just a boss, right? Just telling you where to go. Whereas a leader is in the front and they're leading the charge and they're showing you where to go. And the thing that's been in my mind is I don't like either of those depictions, actually. I think leaders are best when they're kind of in the middle, right? So they're making sure that people aren't falling behind. They're making sure that the people who are empowered to go solve those problems with that autonomy and that skill and experience are out there going to do it. They're not fully removed. Like, those are the best leaders I've seen, where they get in, they understand the strengths and weaknesses of their team. They empower the people who are really good at doing things to lead and mentor the team, essentially. It's not about glory, right? It's about getting the job done, and it's about developing and growing people. And then they're keeping track of the folks who are on that development journey or maybe even struggling. And so the best leaders I've seen tend to live like within the team. And I don't mean doing their own coding challenges, hands on, cranking away. They're just that in tune, and they're that plugged in, and they understand how to best leverage hierarchy, because you need hierarchy in organizations around decision making, funding, vendors, right? I mean, cultural reasons, there's all the reasons to have hierarchy, but they know when to use that, and they know when to embed in the teams. It's a really long answer, but that's the way I think about some of the best leaders I've seen.
I love it. I think that there's your post right there.
I just got to find the image, get the terms right, but that's actually been in my mind the past probably 3 months. Is like, what is really the difference in what is actual great leadership? And thankfully, I've been very, very blessed. Where I've had a number of great leaders throughout my time and my journey. So I've had some really good examples, I feel like, anyway.
Yeah, well, I would count you among one of those great leaders. So I think takes one to know one. Not that I'm saying I know one. I mean, you know them because you are one. That sounded like a humble brag on my part. But I think that's an excellent point. It sounds like a great leader really cultivates a sense of belonging, because they themselves, like you said, they're not at the front or back. They're right there in the middle. They're side by side with their team, and they understand everybody's different. Like, it is, to your point, there needs to be hierarchy. That's the nature of business in a lot of ways too. But I think there's a way to cultivate a sense of belonging. Not easy to do, and I think in the last few years, people would argue that COVID and us going remote pushed on or made worse, issues. I think that, around communication and this sense of belonging, and I wouldn't disagree entirely. I don't think COVID made these a problem. I think they were already a problem, and those bruises got pushed on harder. And I think great leaders really figured out how to reach people where they were at, right, and help them to come along in the journey. I think it's very challenging, which is why they're often few and far between. So, in light of this new year, I guess, and a lot of people I know still, again, are on the job search and are growing weary, or just from the fact that it's been months now. And I'm hopeful. I remain optimistic that we're going to see some better movement here, especially as we get further into 2024. But what would be your advice for people who maybe at this point are a little discouraged? We're at the beginning of a new year, and again, they are looking. But I would just welcome whatever advice you have. Maybe some of the tools that you've learned over your journey to how to navigate some of these tough waters.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, it's a tough question to answer, because I personally haven't had a gap in my career, right, that I've had to navigate. And so I've had cases in the past where I've been looking to transition, and that's taken a long time. So I can relate to it from that perspective. So patience definitely is one. Networking, I think, is another. Just getting, not only necessarily networking from hoping to find the person that can introduce you to the next opportunity, right? But it's networking in the sense of, how do you keep the conversation going? How do you stand and deliver, if you will? I know that sounds a little kind of, I don't know, textbook or cold or college-ish or whatever, but like, it really is. Like, how do you just engage in a conversation and follow kind of a wandering career topic? Like, that's one of the things I think is the most engaging things about networking, is just learning where people have been and engaging in conversation. There's a guy I met the other week. We went crazy down this path of like data and how companies are sitting on like entire businesses and they don't even know it, and it just kind of came out of a conversation with coffee. So I think networking, like having the patience, and then I think finding good guides, right? Good shepherds, if you will. When I think of the experience of an interview, right? And the candidate and the company, like, you've got the shepherd yourself, right? As a shepherd, but finding somebody who's there, who's going to like listen. Like, this is one of the things I love about working with you, is you're not just putting people through the process. You're engaging, you're understanding them, and you're helping really truly guide them. And so I think that it's important for people, I know it probably feels desperate, but find a good shepherd, right? Somebody who's going to really understand you and help you. And that alone, I think, will help just breathe energy and focus, I guess, in that search.
Well, thank you. Like I think I've said to you before, I feel a little like a sheep at times as opposed to the shepherd, but I definitely appreciate, I feel very privileged to be in the position that I'm in where I get to meet a lot of people. And if I can, my goal in my brief encounter with people is to offer whatever value I have, be it I know this company over here will be hiring, or you need to talk to so and so, or let me look at your resume, right? Like I think that to your point, networking has a gross connotation, right? We picture the hello, my name is, and walking around a conference room with, cheese in one hand and a little tiny cup of soda in the other and awkwardly trying to navigate. But I think that human connection really is at the root of a lot of this, right? I mean, this is what we're doing here, you and I connecting, and what we're trying to do on LinkedIn, reaching people and going to coffees. And I think that it's an often underutilized but highly invaluable facet of this journey of the career search is that you can apply and apply, but that's only one part. And it's an important part, but it'll leave you feeling soulless. It leaves people feeling very isolated, right? When you just apply and you don't know if there's a human being on the other side. Whereas when you actually talk to a human being and you feel connected and you feel, uplifted, or you're not alone, right? We feel like not alone in this journey. I think that's very important. Like I mentioned, those bruises being pushed on. I think COVID and us being remote and more fragmented and the office culture dissolving, I think that was part of those, those bruises getting pushed on. So I think this is a way to solve some of that, to do some healing. So what you offered is phenomenal advice. Truly. It's what I keep every day telling people: get out there, connect with somebody, send a message. And people are so gracious. People want to help. I mean, that's the thing that's so amazing is at the end of the day, when I get a message, someone saying, hey, could I pick your brain, or could I write, like, yes, absolutely. Like, let's talk. And you never know what could come of it. It's not always that immediate, like, how can you serve me or what value, right? It's different, deeper than that. It's how can I light you up? How can you light me up? Again, that bucket filling thing. But anyway, I think
Yeah.
that was phenomenal advice. And I'm really grateful too from people going through this, that they want to hear from someone who's interviewed a lot of people. You do your due diligence. That's sometimes not always the case. Unfortunately, people don't always have the chance to sit across the table from someone like you who's actually prepared for the interview, and not just asking someone to recite their resume, or someone who's, asking them to do a hacker rank challenge live. And I think that's really great to hear. There's leaders like you who think differently, who have a more human element and a human touch to this, which is again, that's a source of uplifting and hope. So I really
Uh,
appreciate you sharing all that.
no, I appreciate that. Oh, thank you. I mean, it was really a number of big compliments, so I appreciate that. It's been a journey and an iteration too. I would imagine that if I look back over the period, over the times, I've probably done some terrible interviews, frankly. And so that would be my call to action to companies and hiring managers. Like, look back and reflect, and let's do better. Let's all do better, right? Just in terms of engaging and creating that experience. I did want to touch on something you talked about with the bruises and being pushed on too. I remember, I know, we talked about COVID, like it's over, and it kind of is, I guess, right? But like from a just lockdown, not lockdown, everything else, there was an article that came out about like the great reintegration that was going to happen, and people who had spent 3 years in isolation, effectively, right? 2, 3 years in lockdowns and whatnot. Now you have to go back out there in the world again, and that's terrifying. And I think you hit the nail right on the head. Everybody is just excited and happy to talk and meet and there and welcoming. And so it might be a little terrifying to get back out there again, but that really is like, go meet people, get good book recommendations. Like you said, it's not a like, how can you help me type of thing necessarily. It's, let's just have an interesting conversation. And like, this from you and I talking over the years, like my book pile has doubled in size just from our conversation. So even that is a small value. Somebody would be like, oh, this was interesting, you should read this. Like, I think I will. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. I went to Barnes and Noble on Sunday, and I thought of you because I had to buy. I ended up walking away with 6 more books, and I thought he's going to kill me because I'm just going to tell him about all these, right? And I I finished, speaking of books, I finished Die with Zero by Bill Perkins last week, and very good book, very thought provoking and a different way to look at life. Anyway, I finished that. I thought you were going to kill me because I'm just going to keep, I keep sending you book recommendations, but I appreciate it as well. And that's to your point. I think that's the gift of, again, being on this earth and sharing our talents and sharing our passions and what we love, and makes life a little sweeter, which we can all use right now. So I think, I think that's a great message. And I am excited about this new year. And I think that there will be, like I said, there's good things to come. And I think if people can continue to foster those deep connections and build on more of them and share their goodness, and life will be better. It will. I mean, this is a tough journey for a lot of people right now, but I appreciate your message of hope and chatting with me today. I just, like I said, you're the cat's pajamas.
I still don't know what that is. I did finally, on the topic of books though, and I will write down Dive Zero. I did get Atomic Habits over Christmas, so that one has been recommended. Have you read Atomic Habits? I'm assuming you have.
Absolutely,
it's been recommended like 100 times, and so that finally showed up, wrapped up in a gift bag. So I'm excited to read that and understand how I can, I don't know, get my little micro habits going.
No, it's an awesome book. It makes you want to be like a machine, and that like you stack habits, right? So if you're brushing your teeth, you should also be doing this, like doing pull-ups or something. It's like it makes you want to stack the things that you do. And I still think of that every time, because he bakes in a lot of different habits to his day. So yeah, you'll have to tell me what you think of it. And it was very, very good.
Yeah, I will. I'm laughing because just the other day, so my daughter's 10, and we'd say, don't walk around the house while you're brushing your teeth. Right? Focus, be there brushing your teeth. Yet I walk around the house and I'm brushing my teeth. So I can just see if I was doing push-ups and brushing my teeth. Like I can almost hear already.
The hypocrisy that she would rain down upon you.
Yep, exactly. She already called me on it the other week. She's like, will you walk around?
It is dangerous. I do often think of I go downstairs and I was brushing my teeth. I'm like, this is I'm going to end up on one of these like news reports that I'll be mock worthy,
Right. And then you have the X-ray that's just like, and there it is,
Absolutely, yeah. There was this horrible show that I watched. I admittedly in my college years, so I was, an idiot, and I watched 1,000 Ways to Die, I think it was called, and it was the worst ways people could. That would be. So that's what I think every time I brush my teeth going down the stairs. That would be one of those ways. I'd make at least. The show got canceled. Unfortunately, I can't imagine why. But that would allow me to get on there.
It would. You'll be happy to know that it lives on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling that now. There's an actual channel.
Oh my gosh! I didn't need a reason. Now I have it to get on there. So
there it is. Finally, you found your reason. I appreciate the opportunity to pull up and talk about this. I think it's, like I said, it's an important topic. There's many people that have been trying to help throughout the last year, and so hopefully this reaches more.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you again. I appreciate all your words of wisdom and for being just a real powerful and positive voice in the world. You change your corner of the world for the better. So I appreciate being in that corner.
Thank you. I appreciate that.